urban legends from the UK.
Even the good ones have a bad day, and even more if they live in the UK, whose streets, full of myths and legends, are covered by blood, terror, and death. Just as this girl, who was killed apparently by a man who was to become Jack the Ripper.
But today, it's not about me. It's about the legends that became part of the culture through the UK, causing fear and repugnance.
You didn't kill me at all. What a fail.
Yes, what a fail, what kind of murderer you are. Cannot even kill a fly, can you? What a disaster.
Haha, that's what you think. Hasn't it gone through your mind that perhaps you are dead alive?
What do you smoke, man? How come we're dead alive? Are you trying to tell me that we're part of the legends of the UK?
Yes, you are, my dear friend. You are part of the legend. Your dream has just begun. And you, gentle being, you are too. Isn't it magnificent?
I consider thine opinion as a lightning thrown by Jupiter's hand. And as we lurk in the shadows, why don't we talk to our friends more about the legends held down through the culture and the folklore of the UK?
What are you planning to do? I just don't comprehend it.
Come on, Dry Brain. So here's our top of the most well-known urban legends from the UK.
Okay, this legend is about doubles and doppelgangers.
Number 7.
It was the year of 1862, and a woman who worked as a servant was walking through a London street when suddenly, in the evening shadows, she saw herself on the other side of the sidewalk. She was really shocked, and she tried to pursue her double, but as she turned the corner, it had already disappeared. The woman kept on saying that she used to see her doppelganger in the evening, but not only in that street, but everywhere she walked. Well, that's weird, but that's the way the legend started in the old London. You know, after that evening, some people reported having seen their doubles promenaded in the misty streets of London. Well, that concerns to each one of you to believe this story, but the truth is that the doppelganger topic is as old as time. In the old culture, people already believed in the possibility of having a double, even though for some of them it would represent the bad guy. For the conception of a soul formed by two contrary elements comes from the tradition and Manichaeism. In fact, it has been used as a topic for literature, and it's easy to remember, for example, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, or the tale William Wilson by Edgar Allan Poe. However, in London society, this, more than a horror story, became part of the superstition, and for some, it was but a truth.
One of my stories is about a witch in a bottle.
Number 6.
You might have heard of a ship in a bottle, but have you ever heard of a witch in a bottle? This is the tale of one very troublesome witch. At the play of St. Peter in Dunstable, on a cold winter morning, a local woman called Sally was condemned of witchcraft by the prairie monks. She was slowly burnt at the stake. Her cat and her broomstick suffered the same fate. But Sally did not choose to go quietly, as some did. She died loudly, screaming and cursing to her last breath. She thought that she would take a terrible revenge on the monks who had condemned her. The monks quickly found out that Sally was far more trouble dead than when she had been alive. Mysterious things began to happen. Invisible hands boxed the monks' ears. The church altar candles lit up with an evil green glow. Where Sally's ghostly fingers touched the prayer books, the covers were burned. The monks could not pray in peace or sleep at night. It was driving them crazy. A farmer was finally called to exorcise Sally's ghost in a special church service, but the troublesome witch would still not go quietly. When the farmer began the service, he was struck around with a mighty force that threw him to the ground. As the dazed farmer stopped his feet, the congregation paused in fear, as the witch menacing laughter rang from rafters above. But the palmer himself was cunning, and he found the solution by putting the witch lure in a bottle. The lure was a secret mixture, known only to a few people, of herbs and potions. It was very, just like, how can I say it? A witch spell itself. The lure was so strong, it soon attached the attention of the witch, and with Sally's curious ghost went to investigate, the palmer ran the cork into a bottle tied. He gave a warning that the bottle must never be broken, or the witch would escape and take a terrible revenge on everyone. The bottle was buried in a secret place in the prairie grounds, just to make sure any friends of the witch could not retrieve it. However, as nobody knew where it was buried, it said that there were not more burials in the prairie churchyard, just in case the buried bottle was accidentally broken, releasing the ghost of the witch of Dunstable. As far as we know, no strange bottles have ever been dug up nearest to the side of the old prairie, but if you should find yourself in the area, just remember to treat very, very carefully. There is a poem named The Witch's Warning that gives us some advice. It's a poem of the 18th century, and it goes like this. The spirit in the bottle goes softly by the tray. The lady's a cunning one. Disturb ye? No respect. Never slumber on the restless night, lest ye find the darkness near, for she will trouble thee until in sleep, and steal thy soul to free.
Stories about spirit photographs.
Number 5. The first permanent photograph was produced in 1827, and by 1884, film had replaced photographic plates. Spirit photography in America was first used by William H. Mumler in the 60s. Mumler discovered the technique by accident, after he discovered a second person in a photograph he took of himself, which he found was actually a double exposure, since there was a market for it. Mumler started working as a medium, taking people's pictures and doctoring the negatives to add lost loved ones into them, mostly using other photographs as basis. Mumler's fraud was discovered after he put identifiable living Boston residents in the photos as spirits. By that point, plenty of enterprising Londoners were doing much the same. Another technique involved having the photographer's costumed assistant stealthily stand in the background for a few seconds to create a partially captured, shadowy image. These photographers often worked with the spiritualists to create their effects. The culture of seance, which had grown out of mesmerism, was a huge business.
My stories about dead people under mattresses.
Number 4.
It is told that a just married couple was about to stay at a hotel in Scotland to spend their honeymoon. As they got there, they were taken to the one that was to be their room. Till now, it is a pretty normal story, isn't it? Well, it gets worse. When the couple was on the threshold, they felt a putrid smell. They tried to complain, but the host told them it had nothing to do with the hotel. Well, the legend says that they spent the night in there, despite the odor. In the middle of the night, they couldn't bear it anymore. They felt as though they were sleeping on a graveyard or on someone's grave. They flipped over the mattress, but nothing they found, although they felt it heavier than normal. But why? Well, they sipped it down to figure it out, and there they found the reason. They had been sleeping on a dismembered corpse that was decomposing. Later, they found out that a guest had been killed and put in there, yet the people at the hotel never knew it. That guest was the corpse lying within the mattress. It looks like fiction, doesn't it? Well, now Scottish people and even further, for the legend is also known in the USA, check out the places where they're going to spend the night. The worst part of all is that the story was real, but the tradition added new elements such as the number of corpses, the guests' reactions, and even the fact of having slept on the corpse. Believe it or not, it happened, but the story turned out to be less scary than the one told by the legend. Anyways, not every day you notice a corpse under your mattress.
My story is about a serial killer.
And this story is about mesmerism.
Number 3.
Jack the Ripper, maybe one of the most notorious serial killers of all the time and perhaps one of the most infamous cult figures in history. Jack the Ripper is essentially given to a serial killer who lurked in the districts of London's East in the end of the autumn of 1888. The nickname comes from a letter written at the time of the killing by someone who claimed to be the Mandarin. Although there have been many suspects in the case until it is discussed, the actual identity of the killer and the motives behind the grisly crimes are unknown, even to this day. Jack the Ripper preyed upon destitute prostitutes in the slums and around the Whitechapel in London. It is unclear to know how many victims did he have, but everybody accepts that he killed around 5 women, all of them prostitutes. His victims' throats were cut, often followed by abdominal mutilations, including organ removal in some cases. This guy was completely sick. Based upon the precision of his cuts, it is assumed that by many people that the Ripper had anatomical or surgical knowledge. Jack the Ripper, leather apron as he was sometimes referred to, was bent on making a name for himself by leaving his grisly handiwork in plain sight. All of his victims were killed where they were found, most all of them horribly mutilated, and the nature of his crimes and the Ripper's ability to escape the scene undetected made for the quite Victorian-era media frenzy. The Ripper has successfully cast a veil of terror over the entire city and escaped a worldwide infamy by word of his devilish deeds. Although there was a series of 11 Whitechapel murders that spanned from April 1888 to February 1891. It is believed that the Ripper's reign of terror began on August 31st of 1888 with the murder of Mary Ann Nichols and ended with the ferocious lying of Mary Jane Kelly on November 9th of 1888. There are many theories concerning what promoted the killer to cease his actions. Some believe it was due to the Ripper's sudden death, incarceration, or perhaps admittance to an insane asylum. Others feel like killing spree was purposely shot out and he had eventually completed his course. Thousands of people were interviewed, hundreds were investigated, and 80 people detained during and after the time of the murders. The trail of the Ripper has been closely followed by multiple forces of the police, including Scotland Yard, as well as citizens formed a vigilant committee. Among the highly suspects were butchers, slaughters, surgeons, and physicians, this being due to their knowledge of anatomy. In the end, everyone interviewed provided sufficient alibi, which is not possible that one of them has been the murderer. Much of the evidence in the case of Jack the Ripper was lost over the years, along with many facts of the murders being based upon opinion than anything else. The legend of Jack the Ripper is therefore a combination of historical evidence, documented research, and folklore. It is because of this that the story of Jack the Ripper has become something much more than an unsolved story of crime. Over the years, Jack the Ripper has become an almost a supernatural figure, and perhaps the most mystifying and enigmatic criminal of all the time.
My last history is about pigs.
Number 2. The British believed that the sewers of London were full of monstrous pigs that could one day free themselves from their fetid home and run riot through the city. It was just a classic urban legend. Someone had buried about that a sow had somehow got into the sewer, littered some offspring and fed them on the rubbish being washed into it constantly. Chinese whispers ensued, and it was even mentioned in a Daily Telegraph editorial in 1859. Of course, sewers were a major deal for this rapidly expanding city. The Thames was essentially one large open sewer, and cholera was prevalent. It was only after engineer Joseph Bazalgette constructed miles upon miles of underground break main sewers to intercept sewage outflows, and 1,100 miles of street sewers, that sewage stopped flowing freely through the streets and thoroughfares of London.
And this story is about mesmerism.
Number 1.
At the Victorian era, full of new discoveries and inventions, people still lived surrounded by the superstition. They were also attached to a new idea to cure people by using the animal magnetism, an idea developed by the German doctor Franz Mesmer. Well, Mesmer thought that all living beings were composed by energy that could be measured and controlled in order to heal whatever the patient had. Kind of crazy if we consider that Mesmer didn't even know what he was doing, and it is said that he only did it to get fame. Hold on, it gets weirder. Mesmer said that the best way to achieve this energy was through hypnosis. Despite we think his ideas were kind of out of this world, Mesmer achieved a lot of advances for the hypnotical methods. However, for the world outside, the mesmerism could only mean one thing: brainwashing and mind controlling. People were skeptical about the effects of mesmerism to heal mental diseases. Instead, some of them thought that psychologists who practiced it were trying to control crowds so that they might do whatever they wanted and behaved as they may like it. These ideas became strongly popular through literature and even more through Poe's tales such as The Case of Mr. Baltimore and Mesmeric Revelation. Some years later, people would think mesmerism was being used by governments all around the world in order to control crowds or even as a method of torture to get information from criminals. Well, it doesn't sound so astonish. Writers like Huxley and Orwell have posted it. Legend or truth? Well, that's up on you.